Today's video, I'm looking at partially foiling some background plates so that you actually put your foil in a shape. So that one's in the shape of a heart, and I'll get to the plates I've used in a minute. That one I've done some circles. It's quite a masculine kind of theme card, that one. And for this one, I've used an oval. Okay, and what I've done is I've also used some ink on the oval and the heart to emphasise the shape of the foiling. Let me show you one that's just on a plain background, and I've got so much stuff here to use that I keep losing bits, so just bear with me. Is it that one? Yes, it's that one. So that's the sort of thing you do if you just use some plain card, and you might want to just use some plain card and do some practicing on this before you start using your precious papers and that kind of thing. Okay, so what I've done is I've used, for this particular one, this Spellbinders plate. Okay, so it's a lovely piece of script. You can actually read it, but sometimes I don't want the whole thing. I just want the suggestion that there's text. I don't really want people to read it and be worried about what it says. So that's one that I've used. So that was for the heart. Let me just, sorry about reaching over. For the oval, this one, I've used this Crafter's Companion Gemini hot foil stamp plate, or 4 stamp die plate is the term they use, but so I've used that one. And for my little circles that I did on this card, I actually used this Spellbinders plate. So you can see it's not particularly wide, so you can move it around and just have a circle here and there and give the impression that you've used much bigger background. Okay, so that's what I've done for those. As I say, you can do it on plain paper, or you can do it on pattern paper. Yeah, it's entirely up to you. Now, how I've done this is I've actually created a shaped shim for my foiling. So if you're using the Spellbinders Glimmer, it comes with a thin shim and a top plate. So instead of using your thin shim, you would make some card shims, and I've cut these out, oops, just using normal nesting die sets. Okay, so whatever sizes and shapes you want from your collection of nesting shaped dies. So these are my ovals. I've got a set that's this shape, and I've got a set that's this shape. In fact, I've got at least one huge folder full of different shaped nesting dies. Okay, so it's a case of you can use what you've got. You haven't got to buy something special. You might already have these plates, and I've tried to pick for these things that are still available currently, May 2021. So current products from various people. And I did try it with some older Todo plates, but they're thicker, and I had lots of problems with overfoiling with those because they are thicker. Okay, so I did find there was a tendency to get overfoiling, and I've had to clean it up. So last week, was it last week or week before, I did a video on removing overfoiling. So have a look for that on my YouTube channel. I'll probably link to it, or have it as a suggested video at the end of this one, so it'll be easy to find. But sometimes you can't avoid getting overfoiling, and it just helps to know how to deal with it, so that you're not constantly going, well, I've got a little bit of overfoiling sort of over here somewhere, throw that piece of card away. You don't have to do that, unless you're using coated cardstock. You can quite often remove the overfoiling either using a sand eraser, or if it's on pearlescent card, using a piece of your masking tape. It'll actually pull the foil off the surface. So I have made, in a variety of shapes, some shims, and most of them I've made 3 thicknesses, but for the overlay, I mean, it's bigger, and what I did was I stuck 2 of them together, and then I've got another 2, there's another one somewhere here, that aren't stuck. There it is, it's hiding over there, so that depending on what I'm foiling onto or what dye I'm using, I can actually adjust the thickness of my shim. Okay, so that's my oval. That's a slightly smaller oval. I've got some circles, and I've got my heart in 2 different sizes. I've got a big heart and a little heart. Okay, now the bits of card that I've cut these out from, and this is just plain 250 GSM white card, which I think is about £90 equivalent in the States. It's the sort of, it's not really heavyweight card that you might make a card base from, but it's certainly the sort of weight you'd use to make toppers. Okay, so it might be £100, might be £90, but keep the bits you've cut out, because you use those to put your ink through to show the shape. Okay, so best thing is I actually show you what we do. So I did a load of shapes, so I've kept the pieces of card, and then I keep them all together in a little wallet like this. So shall I start? What shall I start with? Let me start with the heart. Okay, I'll start with the heart in the script. People have really liked that one. So I'm going to put those to one side. I've got my heart shim. This is 3 layers thick. And I'm going to use some rather pretty paper from a 6x6 paper pad. And I use all sorts of brands. Some of them need a bit more pressure on the foiling, some of them don't. But these are quite a good quality. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to need to decide where I want my foiling, but my heart's going to go on the back. So I'm going to put it in the middle, and I'm going to leave my piece of paper this size, although eventually I will cut it down a bit smaller so that I can mat and layer it onto my card base. So I'm going to turn my piece of card over. Let me move my samples out of the way. And I'm going to, let me just point the camera down a bit more. It's focused on the left. So I'm going to put my heart in the middle as best I can. And I'm going to tape it down with a couple of pieces of, I've used a really good quality Decorators masking tape. It's for delicate surfaces, so like freshly painted surfaces. It's worth buying a good quality tape, because I know when I peel that off, that's not going to be a problem. It's not going to damage my paper at all. Okay, so I've got that, and then I need some foil, and I'm going to need to make sure the foil's in the right place. So I'm going to do that first. And then I'm going to bring my actually, shall I bring my GoPress? Let me start the plate warming up first. Okay, because then that can be warming up while I'm sorting out my foil. Right, so let's bring, now I'm using a GoPress and foil, but as I say, you should be able to do this on Spellbinders Glimmer. I don't think it will work on the Gemini FoilPress, because you tend not to use card shims, so you're not going to be able to selectively shim, basically. And as I say, on the Glimmer, you will need to leave out your thin shim and use the card shims instead. And that is fine to do. When they first demonstrated the Glimmer, that was what they were doing. They were using card shims. So I need to get this lined up where I want it. So my heart's in the middle. I'm going to want my plate kind of in the middle, and I can sort of do that by eye. And then I use a stamp press magnet to hold that still while I put it on my GoPress, and I like to line up with the bottom edge of the surround, and you can do that on the glimmer as well, because the surround doesn't get as hot as the hot plate. It might get a bit warm, and I use a piece of my tape and I stick that down. Okay, so I can then hold my plate still through that and take my magnet off, and then that can flip back out the way, and then that can go back on the base to warm up. Now you probably won't pull it off your base while you do that. I just do it because it's easier for the camera. So back onto the base, so it's plugged in. And actually I'm going to take my card off because it was just put in the middle. And that means I can now sort out my foil. You might want to sort out your foil so you don't have to move your card again, or your paper. So foil. How much foil do I need? Not an awful lot. Right. Okay, so that's about the right width. But you don't want you don't want your foil too much bigger than the area you actually want to foil. So I am going to trim this. So that'll be the square I want. So I've just used it, marked that by folding it to get it roughly the right size. Now the other thing you could do to help you with trimming your foil is I've got a fine line Sharpie pen. Doesn't have to particularly be a fine line one, and I can feel where this heart is, and I can draw around it, and that isn't going to do my foil any damage at all, because I'll feel where that is. There we are, there. Because I'm only really writing on the carrier sheet. It doesn't matter that it's really scruffy. Okay, and then I'm going to trim some of the waste away. I'm not going to trim on the line, but I'm going to trim the larger bits of what would be waste away. And it's just to help reduce the overfoiling. And I no doubt there will be some, just because of what we're doing. Okay, but now I need to get my foil in the right place. So you can kind of put it down and feel where your shim is. Okay, that's one way of doing it, and I can actually feel where the edge of my card shim is. Okay, or if you've got near a window and everything's not too thick, you should be able to actually hold up to the light and see where that card shim is. Or you can do it the other way around. Do it that way, actually. Yes, if I do it that way, if I turn it that way and do it that way, that works. Let me just get a light and see if you can, if I can, rather than using the window, I can actually get some light on that. Maybe you'll be able to see it. So, can you? Maybe I need the light the other side. Yeah. So if I hold, let me bring the camera up. So if I put this in front of here, no, that's not strong enough. But if you've got a window, you can hold it up to the light and check that everything lines up. So I am going to put my foil on this side and look from the side that the shim is on, and I can see, when I hold it up to the window, I can see that my foil covers where my shim is. So without moving it, I'm going to tape my foil to my card, to the pretty side this time. So it's really important my tape isn't going to damage my pretty paper. So I say it's worth getting some good quality, professional quality decorators masking tape. I use frog tape. It's their yellow one for delicate surfaces. I'm in the UK and I find that I can get that from Amazon. I can get it, haven't been there for a while, but I know I could get it in the range, and I originally bought it in B&Q. But I do know that 3M do an equivalent professional kind of masking tape that would be suitable. Okay, so I've got my foil on, and while I've been doing that, my plate has been warming up. So let me bring that back here in front of me. So now my shim is already in place. I can put my card back where I had it before, in the middle there. And I can put my big piece of tape on to tape it to that front edge. Okay, and there's another reason for taping it down so it doesn't move. It's so that I can check the foiling without moving it after I've rolled it. Okay, so that's gone in there. I'm going to make sure it is at temperature, so you can see my tape at the front there. I'm going to make sure it is hot enough before I roll it. Let me just turn the camera so that you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, my red light's come on. I thought it would. So I'm just waiting for that to, there I go, green, which it has. Rolling it through my big shop die cutting machine. Okay, I'm going to roll it again. I've done that before the pressure has come off the plates and everything. Okay. So as I'm taking it out, I'm making sure that tape is still stuck, and for the next one I'm going to get a new piece of tape because I don't think this one's got quite enough sticky left. Okay, so that's still stuck down, so it hasn't moved. Okay, so now I'm going to just flip this and have a look at my foiling. So I'm going to release one of my bits of tape here, and in fact you might want to only tape it in a couple of places to make this easier. And then I'm going to lift my foil up and check my foiling quality, and yes, that has foiled. In fact, it's over foiled a bit, so that will be fine. So, but if it wasn't, I can just flip it back down, close the lid, or put my plates back on and roll it again, and everything will still be in the same place. Ooh, there we are. Right. Let's bring that back around there a bit more. Okay, so let's take this piece of tape carefully off the back. So rather than peeling from the edge, peel from where the tape is most on the card, and that way you're least likely to damage your pattern paper or your card. I can take my shim off the back, similarly carefully peel your tape. Some card will tear more easily, So always be careful. Okay, so there I can take these bits off. And there's my foiling. Down at the bottom there, I've got some overfoiling. Let me zoom the camera in on that. Okay, so that little row at the bottom there, that shouldn't be there at all. As I say, there's some overfoiling on the text, but I'm sure I can sort that out. Okay, so first of all, before you get busy with any inking, you must remove all of your overfoiling. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a soft brush. This is just a cheap 1-inch paintbrush. Never been used for painting, so it's perfectly clean. And I'm just going to brush the surface of the foil. And quite often, lots of little bits of overfoiling will just disappear. And just brush it. Okay, so some of those little bits have now gone, but I've got some overfoiling in the text. So I'm going to get my flat sand eraser and just lightly, keeping it flat, go across this, and all those little bits of overfoiling around the letters will then just be rubbed away. It's important to do it before you're inking, because otherwise, if you try and do it afterwards, you'll rub your ink out. That is much better. A couple of bits to do. And I always have to get the light to shine on this to really see the overfoiling. Okay, now let's see if I can get rid of some of this at the bottom with the big rubber. Not sure I am. So, it's on things like this I'd use my creative detailer or a narrow rubber. You kind of want to get a more focused pressure to remove those bits. Or you decide that's where your sentiment's going to go and cover it up. Yeah? My tools are escaping. So the other thing I like to use is Faber-Castell pencil rubber. This I think is intended for erasing coloured pencil in their range, but I find it really good for getting rid of overfoiling. I can get really focused on small areas and remove the overfoiling. Now it does take a bit of the ink off your card as well, but I quite often find that doesn't really show anywhere near as much as the foiling would have. And if you can add a bit of ink in afterwards, then you'll really disguise it. So the overfoiling's nearly disappeared. Some foils tend to transfer colour as well as shine actually really into the fabric of your card or paper, and it can be very difficult to get rid of all traces of that colour. But if you can get rid of all traces of the shine, I find it, people don't really know it's there. They'll assume it's part of your pattern. So here we are. Let me zoom in so you can see, the foil's gone. If I try and get rid of any more of the impression there, I'm going to end up with a really obvious white line. There we are. That's focused now. So there we are. The foiling is much clearer, but you can't really see that it's the shape of a heart. It vaguely is, but you can't really see that well. I can also, now I'm moving this, I can also see some extra bits of overfoiling just at the edges. So I'm just going to remove those. So just round some edges here. That's better. Right, so now I need the piece of card that I cut my hearts out of. Okay, so whatever I've done with that, and I keep these in a packet so that they stay together. So I just need one of these, and I like to use apply my ink with a blending brush. So I'm going to line up my heart with my foiling. Now it can be a bit difficult to get in the exact place, so just be patient. Make sure you've got your shape in the right orientation and rotation. I think that will do. Just, yeah, there. I think what I might do is kind of do the lower section and then check the positioning and then do the bits that are further up. So I'm just going to make a hinge. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of tape down the bottom just to make sure that my card doesn't lift up. And I might get an extra, because I'm quite close to the edge, I might just put an extra piece of card there to make sure if I come off the edge that I'm not going to put ink where I don't want it. So I like to use a blending brush. Ink of your choice, really. I'm using a Tonic Nouveau hybrid ink, but I've used pigment inks and I've used dye inks. It really doesn't matter. I tend to use whatever's got the colour that I want to use, and I've chosen a pink that I think will coordinate with the flowers on this paper. Right, so going in here, and I don't really want to fill the whole thing. I just want to kind of go around the edge. And I quite often find that I always feel like I haven't put much ink on until I lift up my stencil, and then I find there's much more there than I thought. But obviously I need to make sure you can see where I put the ink and what I'm doing. So before I come around the top, I'm going to lift the stencil up and just maybe move it up a touch. A little bit in the middle. Make sure I've got right into that point. There, okay. So now I'm just going to reposition this, because I don't know quite what happens, but it just looks better if the ink is just slightly further out than the foiling in some places. So for doing the top of the heart that really does need to be properly defined, make sure I'm lined up the tip there, and just go up a little bit. That'll do nicely, and stick it back down. And then I can do the top bit. I'm going to put some more colour in the middle. My last piece of tape off. And there we are. Okay, so that's partial foiling, just using part of a large plate. Okay, so as I say, I've shown you some ideas how I've used this. You might want to make several shapes and dot them on a plate and do several at once, but do use individual bits of foiling, because if you try and use one big piece of foil, you'll end up with lots of over foiling. And sometimes the plate will leave an impression in your card, even where you haven't got foil. And if you put it on a firm surface and use something like a ball tool on the back, you can push those creases out, I found. At least enough so that unless someone knows to look for them, they won't find them. Okay, I think I came off the edge of my stencil there with my ink. So, you know, you can always add a bit more colour in your background from your ink to kind of match things in. Just put odd bits around. Just kind of brings the colour from one place on the design into another. Use some stencils, you know. It really is bringing your foiling into perhaps more of a mixed media kind of inspiration. Okay, so that's that one. But it's not just for backgrounds. Okay, so let me find in my heap here. That's what I want. So, what if I want? What if I want a flourish in an oval topper, and I don't want it to look like I've cut it off? Because normally if I did this, and the foil stamp I've used is this one, so normally I would have bits that sort of my cut line goes through the foiling, and on this one it doesn't. It's just away from the edge. Let me get the camera to focus. There we are. So you can see foiling doesn't go all the way to the edge. So what I ended up with was kind of this. I didn't have a whole piece of foil, and there's a gap in it, and that's where I put my die that was the same shape as my shim, so the die I'd used to make the shim, to cut out the oval. Okay, so you could do that, or I like to make my own foil topper. So I've done the foiling for the edge of this one in advance, and this is on some pearlescent card, but it doesn't matter what card you're using. Actually, some card foils more easily than others, but so I've done this one, and I thought I'd try putting my foiling around the edge here, or around the edge here, and avoid foiling over the top of my gold edge. Okay, so I'm going to want, I don't think it'd look right if I mix up my foil colours, so I'm going to get some gold foil out to do this, because this one was a rose gold, and I need to get my plate off of there. So just bear with me a moment while I organise myself. Okay, so I have sorted myself out my oval card shims that match the size of this oval. Okay, I've decided I'm going to use this foil stamp, and I've cut a piece of foil to the right size. Okay, so you haven't got the agony of watching me try and do that. So my card shims. So I'm going to want to line this up now. You can see that where I fold this, I can actually see where the fold line is on the back. So that makes it really easy to line this up. So I'm going to take my 2 card shims to start with, and I'm just going to offset them slightly so that they don't overlap that line. Okay, because if I use the next size down, that's too small. Okay, I actually want that same curve, but I only want part of it. So I'm going to stick that down. Now, am I going to want 3 card shims instead of 2? I might. So I'm actually going to put my 3rd one on top of the 2 that are stuck together, and put them all down at the same time, and the tape will hold them in place. So I'm going to come down a bit and in a bit. I think I've come the right way. No, because it's reversed when you're on the back, so it's actually the other side I want to avoid. So down a bit and in a bit. There should do. Another piece at the bottom. I'm going to put 3 bits on because that makes sure then that the oval is, if it's taped in 3 places, then those layers definitely can't move. Okay. Okay, so I've got my shims on the back. Okay, then I'm going to want to put my foil on the front, and I'm going to want to foil around this bit. So what I need to do here is going to put my, figure out where I'm going to want my flourish to be, and make sure that the foil is going to capture all of that. I think that will work. Yeah. Okay, so then I can take my foil down. And do be careful where you're taping your foil for this, because you could find you've left an indent on this middle of your topper, or you could pull the foil off the edge if you've done that. Actually, you could just be die cutting this. I would suggest you do the flourish before you try and die cut, because lining it up on an oval and getting things to sit in the right place afterwards is very difficult. Okay, so that's going to go there. I need my magnet now to hold my foil stamp in place while I'm putting it on the GoPress. Okay, so the magnet sits on the back there. I'm just going to put that down while I get the GoPress. And some space. And I want a new big piece of tape. So when you've used it a few times, it starts losing its sticky. Okay, so I'll have a new piece of tape ready. So I am going to turn this over and put it on my GoPress and foil. I'm just going to line up that straight edge. It's not a straight cut piece of card, it's an off cut, so it's a funny shape, but that edge is straight and I can tape that down. Hold everything down and take the magnet off, and then I'm going to put it on the base, and then I'm going to open the lid. No, I'm going to flip it out first. As I say, normally I would do this with it on the base, but I'm going to flip that out of the way and then put this back on the base to heat up the die. It's not a huge die, so that shouldn't take very long. So let me just get the samples back. So you might be thinking, well, why not just foil a piece of card and cut the oval out of it? Okay, particularly for something like this. Well, this beautiful die cut that I've had many years, I haven't used a lot because I found that if I was trying to put it around the edge of a topper, these very fine bits at the edge were too easily damaged. And then because I was putting my topper up on foam pads, there was nothing really to glue them to. So actually having these flat and putting that round works really well for that. Okay, and obviously at the moment I don't know about other crafters, but I'm finding I'm making more cards that are have less dimension. So I've got some foam pads under my sentiment here, like just one layer, and I've got a butterfly, but it'll go down flat. So this will go in an envelope for standard postage to go to somebody, rather than having to be given in person or needing a box. So with the current situation in the world where people aren't perhaps gathering for special occasions, but doing things by post, it's useful to be able to keep things flat. Okay. Obviously for this one, my foiling is very much in the background and part of the background. So it's just nice to be able to do something like that on the background without having to use the whole plate. Okay. And then for this one, you know, I could have cut out a heart and then put my die cut on it, but then again it would have been dropping off the edge and not so easy to stick down. So that works really well for that. If you're wondering about this sentiment, it says a little bird told me. It's from one of the new Spellbinders sets. I think it's called A Little Bird Told Me. Beautiful. It comes with a foiled bird and a little wreath for the bird to sit in as well. And the bird cuts out after it's been foiled, if you want it cut out. So that's how I've done that. So hopefully this will be hot in a moment and we can actually do the foiling. There we go. My light's gone green. So let's move the camera. You can see the GoPress foil. You can see I've got the card sticking out. So now that it's hot, I'm going to carefully flip my card back down. And the reason for leaving it off the die while it's heating is so that you get less overfoiling. So I'm going to close the lid. Roll it through the Big Shot, or Big Shot Plus rather. I'm just going to go far enough that I know that I can feel the change in pressure when you're on the foil stamp. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do it again. Okay. Now, sometimes your bits of tape will stick to your top plate. If that's a problem, cover it with a piece of copy paper. Okay. So let's lift this up, and I'm going to start peeling my foil and just check that I had enough pressure there, and it looks like I did. No, I'm not sure I did in all the places. So I'm going to put that back down, and I'm just going to find a small shim of card that I can just put kind of on that corner, and I'm going to roll it again. So now you can see why it's really important that I've got this taped down, because then I can do that kind of thing. So I'm going to peel the foil up again. And now that's foiled nicely. Okay, so I can take that off. Okay, so I'm going to take my tape off the back there, take my card shim off, I haven't got a sample that I've done like this because it's the first time I've actually tried it. I had the idea and I thought, yeah, I'll try that one live and hope for the best. So now I can peel the tape off my foil. And there I have my flourish. I think just in one spot up here I didn't quite have the shim in the right place. But you know, a bit of practice, you get that right. But around the other edges you can see it doesn't overlap. Okay, and then I can cut that out and have it as a topper. Now if you're, depends what you're going to use your topper for obviously. If you're going to put a die cut on it, I'd cut it out straight away. If you're going to stamp on it, I'd probably leave it without cutting it out with the die, just because it's easier to hold it down if you're using something like a stamp press, or perhaps taping the card to your table so that it doesn't move if you're stamping with a block. So that just makes that easier. But if I cut that out with the die, you'll see how it would look. So, using my die that I used, if you want to know how to foil the line around the outside, you do it using the back of the die, and there are lots of videos on my channel about how to do that, and again I'll make those a link at the end. There's actually a whole playlist of them, using images printed from craft USBs and CDs, but it doesn't have to be from that. It can be a plain piece of card like I've used here, or it can be a topper that you want to change the size of, that you've got pre-printed and even pre-cut. You know, from a craft collection. So it's entirely up to you to adapt the ideas to what you want to do. Okay, and if you want to show other people your ideas, that's absolutely fine. Spread the message and the love of foiling. You know, don't feel you'll be stealing my ideas. I'm sharing them because I want people to use them, and I want people to take them and do more things with them that I haven't thought of. So there you are. I've taped the die down so it's in exactly the right place. I always find that it's best to tape it down and then I sort of turn it round and have a look and make sure it really is in the right place. Because sometimes you turn it around and you think, no, I'm crooked. Particularly with ovals. Very easy to get ovals crooked. Circles are much easier in that respect, and so are squares. So I've just got a piece of paper on here because I find that helps protect my toppers from getting many marks from my bottom plate. And there we have it. Okay. So I've done them in the past where I've just let the foiling overlap, but I think it looks better kept just that slight bit away from the edge. Means you get a nicer edge. Let's see if I can get a really good close-up on that. there. You see, so you've got a really neat edge, and I just didn't quite have the shim offset enough just on that last little corner there. But I really like that effect. So let's have a recap. You could do the same just onto some card and then just cut it out. You don't have to have a foiled edge. The same thing. And you can use just part of a plate. And then, as I say, depending on what you've used, I didn't need to do it with the lines, but you might want to use the card that you've cut your shims out of as a stencil and add some ink to define the shape. Okay, so thank you for watching, and the idea is that you use what you've got, hopefully, and find other ways of using it. As I say, I've used Spellbinders and Crafter's Companion Gemini plates because they're available. See what you have and feel free to experiment. Okay, thank you for watching.